Hello from Topeka. It's Marley Carpenter, your KSCPA lobbyist. Last week was the fourth week of the legislative session. Last week, more than 128 bills were introduced, and this week, over 75 hearings are scheduled. Friday is the last week for bill introductions in non-exempt committees. Exempt committees are committees that are not subject to any of the legislative deadlines and include House and Senate Federal and State Affairs, Senate Ways and Means, Senate Tax, as well as House Appropriations and House Tax Committee. The non-exempt committees have 2 more full weeks to complete their work before the bills go to the floor for turnaround. The turnaround date is scheduled for February 24th. The Kansas Division of Budget did release its fiscal note on Senate Bill 61 last week. This is the single 5% tax rate bill for corporations and individuals. The state estimates that this proposal would cost more than $3 billion over 3 years. Governor Kelly and Democratic leadership have criticized this plan, saying it harms low-income earners and favors more wealthy Kansans. This bill is being forwarded by the Kansas Chamber and the Kansas business community. The Kansas Department of Revenue reported on state tax revenues in January. State revenues were up $1.04 billion. They were up more than $55 million or 5.6% above estimate and $102 million or 10.9% above January of 22. Kansas has now taken in over $5.5 billion in total state tax receipts so far this fiscal year. Newly elected State Treasurer Stephen Johnson has proposed adding $1 billion to the state's High Budget Balance Fund or Rainy Day Fund. This is $500 million more than the governor has proposed in her budget. He warned lawmakers that Kansas can't continue to depend on the COVID-19 federal aid to sustain this budget and is concerned about a nationwide recession. Governor Kelly also announced last week a Kansas-based company, Integra Technology, plans to invest $1.8 billion in a large-scale semiconductor facility in Wichita. This is the second largest private investment in Kansas history, taking advantage of the $304 million in tax incentives that Kansas passed last year, called the APEX program, to attract the Panasonic battery plant. This 1 million square foot plant and headquarters facility will create nearly 2,000 jobs, averaging $51,000 in wages. The House Tax Committee did hold a hearing on 2123 last week, which would allow surcharges on purchases made with credit or debit cards. Current law prohibits retailers from passing along the surcharge to the customer. Legislation will also be heard in the Senate Tax Committee on this similar bill next week. The House and Senate Tax Committees continue to work on bills such as an increase in the threshold for Social Security tax, sales tax holiday, single factor tax rate, among others. Expect the committees to begin to take action on these bills in coming weeks. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact myself or Danielle at the KSCPA office. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you next week.